Ratchet & Clank Going Mobile is a very intriguing entry in the franchise. It was released back on November 2nd in 2005 for older phones, like way before they had touchscreens. No one asked for it, but in the same way, no one takes it for granted. For being as limited in hardware and graphics as it was, the game actually turned out astonishingly ahead of its time. The game even had a planned sequel called Ratchet & Clank Clone Home that was cancelled for unknown reasons, though some speculate it's because the story of Clone Home was a little too similar to that of Size Matters, which would have already been released by the time Clone Home came out, leaving them to cancel the project in its entirety. Now, unlike Size Matters and all of the games before it, Going Mobile is a 2D side-scroller that focuses on combat, platforming, and exploration, but in a significantly more linear way. The game still features plenty of replayable sections to further increase your experience, including 30 titanium bolts that are scattered about. Some of these are awarded for doing a bit of extra platforming or going a different path that you were not initially intended to go. But most of them are collected later down the line because during the first visit, there's a door to access it that is locked and you unlock it in a later level, and then you just come back to the level and you get the bolt for free. To my absolute surprise, this game also features an arena. That's right. Something even the 2016 game couldn't do. Now, obviously, with this being a 2D side-scroller, the arena is quite a bit different. These missions basically just task us to defeat a certain amount of enemies while meeting the conditions. Whether it's with the Lancer only, the Bazooka only, and there's even one where you can only use the wrench. Now, these missions aren't very difficult, but it's still a good way to earn a few bolts if you're looking into getting all of the weapons. And I mean, it's not a Ratchet game without an arena. Speaking of buying weapons, let's talk about the weapons. This game features 8 weapons total, with several of them being a completely new addition to the series, like the Bazooka, Circuit Jammer, and the Defragmenter. The Bazooka is this game's transformation weapon, kind of like the Sheepinator, only this time, as the name describes, it turns them into boars. The Circuit Jammer is mainly used as a gadget to break through certain walls in the game, blocking paths and bolts. But it's actually also a weapon in itself. It blasts bullets at a quick rate of fire and even has homing capabilities. Unfortunately, the bullets themselves aren't that strong. Last but not least is the Defragmenter. This is the shotgun of the game. You guys know how I feel about my Ratchet & Clank shotguns. And this one is no different. It shoots blue beams that pass through objects, enemies, and even walls. That's right, we're gonna be blowing shit up. Red Faction Ratchet, anyone? The returning weapons are still a nice addition to the game, and honestly, they did not take out of the experience of the game like some returning weapons tend to do. The crazy thing is that this game actually had a Rhino in it as well. It's a 16-bit version of the Rhino 2 model that does some pretty okay damage, but its addition to the game is what puts a smile on my face. I mean, you can't have a Ratchet & Clank game without the Rhino. Well, except Deadlock.
I'm better than the Rhino.
The game's story is okay for what it's worth. Ratchet & Clank were testing out some new biomatter converter, which during its testing accidentally triggered and transported them into an electronic device. The device they happened to have been transported into was a Secret Agent Clank vidcomic. Wait a minute. So does that mean this game is technically Secret Agent Clank's prequel? Oh. That's a disturbing thought. This game has us going through several different areas that consist of a few levels each, and the goal is to find our way out of the vidcomic and return to the real world using the MacGuffin? Never mind. We will just call it the McMuffin. We have to find all 6 McMuffins in order to escape the vidcomic and return to the real world. The game starts Ratchet & Clank in Circuit, where we are ambushed by our first enemy in the game, a Megacorp chicken robot. After defeating him, we move onward, we find ammo for our Lancer, and kill more chickens. We continue forward until we learn that Clank is apparently Elastigirl and can extend his arm as if it were a swing shot. Could they really not make a sprite for the swing shot? Really? Anyways, we move forward to the next area. At this point in the game, we unlock the vendor. We head into the vendor and buy the gravity bomb for 800 bolts. Now we are on to the next level, the Battlelands. This level has us fighting all sorts of enemies and also has us doing wall jumps, which makes a return, and grind rail sections, which make a return, unlike the previous game Up Your Arsenal that completely excluded them. This level did step up in difficulty as there were a lot of these little robot troopers, but it wasn't too bad. We then unlock the arena, which is extremely exciting, so I go straight to the arena. The first 2 missions are literally just to kill 10 enemies, and then kill 10 enemies with only the Lancer. Not an issue at all. Also, if you notice in the background, there's an Ace Hardlight poster, so this kind of tells you where the game takes place time frame wise. It's said to be told between Up Your Arsenal and Deadlocked, even though the game itself is not actually canon. We then head for the Communication Center, which is going to be a very important level later, but this first one isn't very important. We start off by trying to use the Gravity Bomb, and yeah, it sucks in this game. It's meant to be something that you could shoot down if you're like elevated, but it's just not. It's not very optimal. Anyways, we move on forward. This level has a lot of moving platforms, and it also introduces the turret enemies, and there are a lot of them. I believe we also get introduced to these explosive dudes. Honestly, they just remind me of the cake from the FNAF movie, but I do believe they explode on impact, so be careful. Wasn't expecting that, were you? I see the pee running down your pants. Anyways, we then head to the security BIOS, which is very similar to the last level, except this time we have some plasma balls to jump over, and we actually have obstacles on the grind rail section, which is pretty cool. We also have one of those locked platinum bolts I was talking about that we'll have to come back to later. Other than that, nothing very special on this level. We then head back to the communication station. This is when it's slightly more important. We have our normal bit of enemies and platforming. The game is getting a little bit tougher now, and you never actually get more nanotech, so it do be challenging. But the good news is, at the end of this level, we are able to find and talk to Al, and he pretty much tells us that we need to find the McMuffin that I spoke of earlier. If we can find the McMuffin, we can get out of here. We backtrack back through Circuit and find our first piece of the McMuffin. We then head to Burnout Murder Bowl, which sounds very dangerous, and we end up actually dying for our first time. This level was tough, but the end of it obviously has another McMuffin that we need for completion. This is 2 out of 6 parts of the McMuffin. We then head to the next 2 areas to get McMuffin piece 3 and 4. And we also run into this casino guard that we'll have to come back to at a later time, so keep that in mind. The next level is honestly no issue at all, and at the end of the level we get an info link that basically tells us where the last 2 pieces of the McMuffin are. So let's head there now. The next level is a really cool tower kind of level where you have to keep wall jumping and climbing to take out the turrets. And then it leads straight to the 5th piece of the McMuffin. To get the last piece of the McMuffin, we have to go through a level with a lot of enemies. We end up using the mini rocket tube for 90% of this because it's our most busted weapon, and it honestly has 50 ammo for some reason. But after all of this hecticness, we end up getting the final piece of the McMuffin. McDonald's, here we come. We head to the nearest communication station and talk to Al. After assembling the McMuffin, he explains that we need a special info link to use it in order to get out of the Secret Agent Clank vid comic. Turns out Maximilian, Clank's old nemesis, is in charge of all of this, and we need to pay off one of his bouncers to get inside the Maktar casino in order to stop Maximilian. We also need a brand new weapon, the Circuit Jammer, to get to where we need to go. This is that weapon that I talked about earlier that breaks walls that couldn't be broken before, but also can be used as a weapon, which is really cool. In the next area, our objective is to find a way to bribe the bouncer to let us into the Maktar casino. At the end of this level, after we do a bunch of swing shot platforms and platforming, we end up obtaining a payola, which I guess is supposed to be some kind of currency to bribe the bouncer to let us in. The bouncer actually takes the bait and lets us into the main casino area. We are now heading into some high security areas as we are heading deeper into the casino. These levels are pretty challenging, but we've been mainly using the mini rocket tube the entire time, and it's really busted, especially at max level. After clearing the last few casino levels, we get access to Gold Sprocket, which is where we get to face off with Maximilian and clear the game. But before we do that, I wanted to collect every single titanium bolt as well as 100% the arena so we could get all of the weapons, including the Rhino. The arena challenges were really fun, which is really surprising for how limited it was, and we did end up beating the last one, which unlocks the Borzooka, and we also collected all the titanium bolts, which unlocks the Rhino. Now it is time for Maximilian. This fight is pretty simple. You just have to destroy his outer shell, But while you're doing this, he is shooting you with a bunch of bullets while also summoning a lot of chicken robots. So it can get a bit annoying, but once you destroy his outer shell, just shoot him a bunch of times with the mini rocket tube, because just a heads up, the Rhino sucks. And yeah, he'll be down and out in no time, therefore clearing the game. So yeah, my honest opinion on going mobile is that this game is honestly a fun time to play. Unfortunately, it does take only like 2 hours to fully clear, but it's still a really good time and a great addition to the franchise. What do you guys think of this game in the comments? Have you played it before? Does it look like a fun game? What do you think of its addition to the Ratchet & Clank franchise? Please let me know in the comments, and if you like this kind of content, please subscribe for more. Also, if you guys have any challenge ideas for going mobile, throw them in the comments. I'd be willing to do them. Thank you so much to all the members of the channel. If you want to become a member, click the link down below or click the join button for extra perks and rewards. Your guys' support means the world to me. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one.